in the mom and pop store, we had met a new reoccurring character throughout the rest of the series in Tim Watley. In The Soup, we meet another new reoccurring character, a bad comedian, but who just still thought everything he did was good and just loved to brag about himself, Kenny Bania, who just absolutely crawled up Jerry's skin. And of course, in the end, Kenny Bania always seemed to somehow get some sort of success out of most of the storylines that he was involved with. Whether it's he's got a date with Uma Thurman, he gets another date with Jerry's old girlfriend Jenna, who was the one who Jerry had accidentally knocked the toothbrush into the toilet that she would use afterwards and whatnot. You know, he always somehow seemed to always get his way in some ways, which is nuts. But of course, he always just wanted. Kenny Bania was one of those guys that he meant well, but he just wanted to be Jerry's buddy so bad that he just didn't realize how annoying and crazy he was. But definitely another good reoccurring character that I definitely enjoyed. And also, The Soup, a pretty good episode. A debate of what really counts as a meal and what doesn't count. You know? So let's get into it. Let's talk about the Soup episode. So the episode starts off with the gang was sitting in it was just Jerry, George, and Elaine sitting inside Monk's having a meal. Well, it's just Jerry and George, but then Elaine had returned from a business trip with Mr. Pitt. Before Elaine walked in, though, the waitress Kelly came over, and she seemed to be getting a little flirty with George. And then, of course, George was wondering whether if she likes him or not, and thinking what it could be. Elaine, of course, joins them, talks about her trip, and she also says she met an Englishman, and apparently the guy is going to be flying to visit her here in the United States on her frequent flyer miles. So she's really looking forward to that. This is, of course, when Bania comes in, and he, says hello to Jerry and everyone else. And he starts bragging about he's been working out, how he's huge. He's gone from a size 40 to a size 42. And then he starts asking Jerry if he wants an Armani suit, because the suit's a size 40, which is Jerry's size, and now he's a 42 because he's huge, so he's too big for it that he's mentioning. And Jerry, of course, wasn't really interested because he doesn't like Bania. But then Elaine and George encourage him to take the suit, and Bania Bania didn't even want anything for it. Which, of course, Bania would just thought that was great, too. I was like, I'm giving Jerry this suit. I don't even want anything for it. Just raving about it. And then, of course, they go to leave. Elaine had to get ready to go pick up Simon, the Englishman, from the airport. But then Jerry and George were outside of Mugs, and then George is contemplating about asking out Kelly, that waitress. Until Jerry finally says, just go and do it. So George goes back in, and he does it. Later, of course, George would later on come back and celebrate the fact that she said yes, they're going to go out for a walk later on. And he's saying how he does good with the daytime dates. He's always at his best with those. Also in that next scene, we had Jerry chill with Kramer in his apartment. Kramer, though, walks in and asks Jerry to help him remove his refrigerator from his apartment. Ever since he had those kidney stones and, of course, the nosebleeds, he wants to have only just fresh food, and he no longer wants to refrigerate things anymore. So, while that's happening, here comes Kenny. He stops by to drop off the suit, and Kramer admires how it's Armani and how it's very good as well. And again, Bania starts bragging about that he doesn't even want anything for it. He doesn't want anything in return. And, of course, Kramer starts mentioning how you got to give him something in return, take him out to dinner, and this, and that. And then finally, Kenny's like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. And he's now Jerry can take him out to dinner to even it all out. And of course, Banny's all excited about it. And then when he leaves, Jerry just rants to Kramer about how he doesn't want to go out with Kenny. He doesn't even really like Kenny to begin with and whatnot. So now Jerry's stuck going out to dinner with this annoying hack comic that he cannot stand at all. Elaine, of course, then goes to pick up Simon from the airport, but she immediately finds him to be pretty rude and not so friendly, claiming that he's annoyed by her snotty behavior. And then he corrects her because instead of saying what, she says, instead of saying what, she should be saying pardon. And of course, a couple times throughout the episode, whenever they had clashes, Elaine would be like, pardon? Like, obviously, like, making a mockery out of the fact that that's what he wanted her to say. And basically, she finds out throughout the episode that he's pretty much a bum. He's got no money and he's got no prospects. So he basically was kind of mooching off Elaine for the time being. And then George is taking a walk with Kelly in some park. While they were walking, she's talking about how the waitress job is currently just temporary. She mainly makes hair clips. That's what she wants to go for in her career. She points out, though, about how George stepped into some manure. And then George mentions how, like, manure isn't that bad and starts talking about horse manure for the heck of it. And then she randomly points out George's watch. And she says, my boyfriend has the same one. And then George's like all confused, like, boyfriend, huh? Like, he was very thrown off on that. So he goes back to see Jerry, and he's annoyed about how the waitress said yes to going on a date without even mentioning that she has a boyfriend. And then when Jerry says, what all happened? What are you guys talking about? And then when George says the horse manure got brought up, Jerry was like, that may have been something. She may have been turned off by the horse manure that she said she had a boyfriend just to, get her off her back. So now they're wondering whether or not if she really had the boyfriend or not. But then Kramer comes in and he's acting all strange. And then basically Jerry's like, I'm saying, like, what, you couldn't handle it for the longest time. But then Kramer had actually gotten a date, with, I'm sorry. I'm a little early. He came in the first time he comes in, and next time we see Kramer, he says how he loves not having a refrigerator, and he also tells him that he got a date with a waitress named Hildy from one of the other cafes in New York, Reggie's. And then George though asks Kramer, since he knows that Hildy knows, he asked her if she knew Kelly, and if she does, find out if Kelly really has a boyfriend, which Kramer said he'll find out for him. And then Kenny says he wants to do his meal today. He says, let's go to Mendy's for 7 o'clock. And he brags how Mendy's is the best, Jerry, the best. The best, Jerry, the best. That's gold, Jerry, gold. Why is it called Ovaltine? This is round, that's round, should be called Roundtine. And that's later on in a different episode. Anyways, though, Jerry goes out to eat with Kenny at Mendy's, and all Kenny wants to talk about is his workouts, which Jerry doesn't give two craps about to begin with. And then they place their order, and then Kenny says, "You know what? I'm just gonna have soup." He goes, "We'll save the meal for another time." And then Jerry's like, "What other time? There's no other time." And then Kenny says how he had eaten a hot dog earlier, and he claims that soup doesn't count as a meal. He's supposed to take him out for a meal, not just soup. Soup's not a meal. So Jerry thinks that, of course, Kenny did it as a trick of it, going out to dinner with him yet again. The next day, Jerry and Elaine were sitting on the front step of Elaine's apartment building, like discussing whether or not soup is a meal. So some particulars, like, the type of soup, where there was crackers in it. Like, at first it was like, Elaine seemed to take Kenny's side, but as they discussed it more, Elaine saw a reason to take Jerry's side. Which, of course, this is where Simon walks out asking her for cash, and again, mentioning how he is a bum, he has no prospects, But he did apparently go out with a woman later on in the show and was talking to her about it right in front of Elaine. So basically this guy just used Elaine to come to America, basically. And then when he didn't say where he was going, she said, "Pardon?" Meanwhile, Jerry and George go back to Monk's. George feels uncomfortable because of his awkward date with Kelly. Kelly came over to take their orders, but wasn't really the same conversation as last time. Wasn't smiling, wasn't friendly. And of course, after she placed the order, Kenny walks in and invites himself in, then orders tuna on toast for lunch. So Jerry points out how, this is going to be payback for the meal. This fulfills the transaction. To which Banya argues again over how, this is not the meal that he asked for. He goes, I'm supposed to give him a meal, like a meal, not just just soup, which doesn't count as a meal, but staying to a nice restaurant. To which Jerry just puts his foot down. Nope, that's enough. This is the meal, whether you like it or not. And then Kramer walks in and tells George that Hildy told him that Kelly does not have a boyfriend, and that Kelly made the whole thing up, obviously. To which makes George even more uncomfortable. So later in the episode, Elaine stops by the apartment and saying how she's looking forward to Simon's departure in 2 days. But Simon came with her. He brought a beer. Kenny calls and tells Jerry that he still doesn't think that they've completed the transaction, but then Jerry basically hangs up on him, and then Jerry sees a suit, and then he asks Simon what size he wears. It's a 40, so he gives Simon the Armani suit that he literally didn't even want in the first place. So he gives this to Simon, and as Simon leaves, Kenny calls back and says that he wants the suit back, and Jerry says, "Too late, it's gone," and hangs up with him again. Then Kramer comes in. This is where Kramer starts acting weird and whatnot. He didn't want, and then Jerry thinks that Kramer's cracking and he wants food now and he wants his refrigerator back. And he goes, "No, that's not the case. It's not for him, but it's for Hildy, who's hungry and cranky. I guess she has some blood sugar issues or something like that." But then if Kramer doesn't come back with any food, he's dead meat. She even comes over and watches Kramer find food, but she approves of peanut butter and cheese, which he's fine with. Then they went to go eat at Monk's, Jerry, George, and Elaine. But George, though, says he's too uncomfortable to go inside of Monk's because of Kelly. He says he wants to go to Reggie's, which Jerry doesn't want to go because they have no egg white omelet, and then Elaine doesn't want to go because they don't have a big salad. So they go to Reggie's, and then, Hildy serves them, but, it was just an awkward conversation about they don't have, big salads, they don't have this and that, and even though Elaine's like, well, you could take just just like a big bowl and put a lot of salad in it, she goes, or I could bring you 2 small salads or whatnot, but it just, people just weren't happy right now at all with what they did there. She also tells Jerry that Simon picked up a woman right in front of her, and then they're trying to figure out, how could George get Kelly fired so he can go back to Monk's? Well, later in the episode, Kramer had gotten Hildy fired because he kept calling the restaurant, and the manager got sick of it. So George thought, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing to Kelly. So the same thing happened at the restaurant. Kelly served Elaine and Jerry, who were at Monk's. They had their egg white omelets and their big salads. Even though it was supposed to be Kelly's last day, as she basically got a better deal on her hair clips. Of course, the manager keeps telling Kelly that George keeps calling, but then Kelly says, "No, he's not my boyfriend," and then it says he's just friends with them. So then the manager tells Jerry and Elaine to tell George needs to stop calling. And then, of course, Kenny comes in. He wants his suit back, but Jerry says he doesn't have it. But then Kenny sits down at the counter, and then Simon came in to give Elaine her apartment keys. And says, yeah, he has a job interview thanks to the Armani suit Jerry gave him. As he goes to walk away, Elaine calls over to Kenny, telling him, if you want your suit back, it's right there. Kenny runs after Simon, and they fight over the suit. And other than George having a end credit clip where he just sits in Reggie's all alone eating, doesn't know. Of course, he would eventually go back, as that was Kelly's last day. That's how the show off the air. So, again, there's a debate here of whether or not if soup is a meal or not, and whatnot, but Kenny basically was trying to get more out of Jerry than Jerry wanted out of Kenny, because Jerry can't stand Kenny. But, you know, that's the soup episode. The only facts I really have about this, again, is the first appearance of Steve Heitner as Kenny Banya, again, who is definitely a very good, reoccurring character. And the only other thing I have is Tracy Collis was a lady who played Kelly, the waitress. Fun fact, I didn't realize this. She actually did appear earlier in the series in the ex-girlfriend episode. The girl Marlene with the southern accent. Jerry, I just don't know. Same woman. And Kelly played her this time. So, George dated Tracy Collis twice, 2 different roles. One is an ex-girlfriend who's just overbearing. And then another woman he turned off with horse manure. So, interesting there. But yeah, that's the soup. I think the next episode is the secretary. The next few episodes are actually pretty good. The next 4, I gotta say, are some pretty good ones I enjoy talking about. Especially when we get to 2 episodes away. Well, the next 4 episodes are the secretary, the switch, the race, and the label maker. All of them are good, but definitely the switch and the race are another 2 of my personal favorites. I can't wait to talk about them next. And also, even though it's not talked about until the switch, which may have been because one may have been filmed sooner than the other, but the secretary is also where we do get introduced to how they reenacted Steinbrenner, which we'll get to that next. So guys, once again, make sure your thoughts down in the comment section below on the soup. What's also your thoughts on the character of Kenny Banya as well? Have you ever had any awkward dates where the woman tells you that they have a boyfriend but they really don't, they're just finding a way out of it because they were completely unattracted to you by a horseman or chat or whatnot? Make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, and be sure as always to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well at DemandAirBody3. Tell them guys I'm checking it out. I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out, everybody.